is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, and I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, I just saw you in that awesome shirt with the thumb holes in it. Yes, I'm filming 2 videos today, and it's really cold in my house because I haven't been here for a few days, so I needed a long sleeve, and this one's super comfy. I love the holes. It was a gift from Steve. Thank you, Steve. So today we're going to be doing another reboot, and don't roll your eyes at me. You guys know these reboots flow way better than the old ones, so let's just get on with it. Thank you guys for bearing with me this week, it being a short week again. I did have some family emergency come up. If you did not watch my budget beauty, so I did not have time all week to do any research because I was helping my sister with an emergency and I wasn't home and I just didn't have the time. Sometimes life happens. So without further ado, let's talk about Natalia Grace Barnett. So there is a disclaimer in this one, and it says, I did the absolute best I could and spent weeks researching this case to try and get nothing but the facts. However, this case itself is nothing but speculation. I'm trying to give an accurate representation of both sides of the story and how both parties feel and why. Keep in mind, though, that, again, it's a mystery, and nobody but the people involved know the actual facts of this case. I look forward to discussion in the comments on this one. Come here. You want to say hi?
Sure.
Don't touch my computer. Take that pinky out. Say hi.
Hi.
Say I interrupted mommy.
Hi.
Give me a kissy.
I help Mama.
Okay, I don't need your help right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Come on, let's go downstairs. Okay, without further ado, let's talk about Natalia Grace Barnett. Around the month of October in 2019, a story hit the media about a couple from Indiana named Christine and Michael Barnett, who moved to Canada and left behind their 11-year-old adopted daughter. The couple was being charged with neglect for abandoning the little girl, and as crazy as this sounds and as infuriating it might be to you, let's start at the beginning. Here's the story. When Natalia came from the Ukraine to the United States in 2008 as part of an adoption program and from a group home in the Ukraine, she was originally adopted by a different family, not the Barnetts, but for unknown reasons, she was returned very quickly after originally being taken. In 2010, though, that's when Christine and Michael Barnett adopted Natalia. The Barnetts loved children and thought that 6-year-old Natalia would be the perfect addition to their family. They were aware that Natalia had a severe form of dwarfism that affected her bones and their ability to grow, and also that she had very, very severe scoliosis. The couple was informed that Natalia may have trouble walking and have some pain from time to time, but other than that, she was perfectly healthy in every other way, despite her dwarfism. Now, here's where I should mention, before we go any further, that aside from the fact that she most likely came from a Ukrainian orphanage and was adopted by at least one other couple before the Barnetts and returned because, quote, it just wasn't the right fit, end quote, we know absolutely nothing about Natalia's past before she was adopted by the Barnetts at the age of 6 in 2010. According to Christine Barnett, though, she and her husband knew when adopting Natalia that she had been adopted to and returned from at least 30 different orphanages before coming into their home. As with almost all of the information in this confusing yet completely and totally interesting case, though, this can't be confirmed as fact. And I have no idea where Christine got this information from because the adoption agency says differently. Officially, like on paper, only one other couple is documented, but Natalia herself admits to being with, quote, just a few, end quote, other families, and claims Christine is simply making the story about all those other families, those 30 families up, as part of her justification for abandoning the young girl. Michael Barnett said in an interview that the adoption agency, which was based in Florida, actually reached out to him and his wife instead of the other way around. and they informed him that they, quote, have the perfect little girl for you, end quote. He said at the time he didn't think this was strange in any way, but looking back after everything that happened, he said he definitely finds it suspicious now. He claimed that the agency refused to give him and his wife any information about the child or the former family, and they basically just, quote, cold called, end quote, them. The agency gave them a Ukrainian birth certificate, paperwork from a doctor visit that took place when Natalia first came into the country 2 years earlier when she was allegedly 4 years old in 2008, and 2 pictures of Natalia. He recalled that they were only given 24 hours to decide whether or not to adopt this little girl, and what I just mentioned was the only information made available to them. I just want to state here that to me, this is all really shady and suspect. Because keep in mind, if someone's really desperate to adopt, then all of this could be very overwhelming and kind of put so much pressure on them to say yes, they won't really think things through. So in my opinion, if this actually happened this way, the way Michael Barnett claimed it happened, I can see how they may have lived to regret it later on when they were more clear-headed and thinking like, oh my gosh, what did we just do? They may have felt very manipulated for whatever reason the agency did this, allegedly. I should also mention here that according to Mike, the couple was told that if they did not choose to adopt Natalia within the 24 hours in that time frame, she would be sent directly into foster care. Mike went on to say that when he and his wife first met Natalia, she came, quote, running into the room, smiling from ear to ear, saying, "Mommy, Daddy, Mommy, Daddy." She had just been given up for adoption by her previous family 5 minutes earlier, and we should have recognized there's no 6-year-old on the planet that would be happy about that situation and immediately start referring to Christine and myself as Mommy and Daddy, end quote. He said they spent 5 minutes with Natalia, and within 5 minutes after that, they had signed the adoption papers and adopted her as their own. Now, according to Natalia, at first she felt so much love. She felt like this was going to be her forever home. She felt super safe, super comfortable. She just felt like she really fit in with this family. And she said from the door, everything was amazing. Like, she couldn't have felt more loved, more lucky that this family had adopted her. She really felt a part of it. However, Christine and Michael say something completely different, and they say they started having problems, quote, before we even got home. That very first night when Christine was giving our new daughter a bath, she shouted to me, "Michael!" And it wasn't just a shout. It was one of those tones of voice where you just knew something was very wrong, end quote. Michael then goes on to claim that when he ran into the bathroom, his wife was, quote, white as a ghost and clearly shaken, end quote. And she said to him very quietly, "Look." And when he looked at what his wife was so worked up about, he saw that, quote, Natalia, at age 6, and he did the quotes with his hands in the interview, had full pubic hair, end quote. So obviously, this was when the family first started to think that Natalia was older than she was claiming to be. So I looked this up, and I found something that's extremely rare and uncommon, but it's not unheard of or impossible for young girls to have pubic hair at the age of 6. There's something called precocious puberty, and the Mayo Clinic does in fact recognize it as a real condition. So that lended it a bit more credence and credibility to me that perhaps this might have been what was going on with Natalia. Maybe she had this rare dwarfism, she had severe scoliosis, maybe she also had precocious puberty. Do we know if this dwarfism would have caused that? I mean, I'm not a medical professional, right? I'm not a doctor. I'm just telling you guys what allegedly happened, and I was really curious as to, is this possible? And apparently it is. I know someone who got their period and started going through puberty at age 9. And I know you're going to say, well, Gemma, 9 isn't 6. I'm just saying, either way, I mean, it happens. And while I would be shocked as well, I wouldn't automatically assume that the 6-year-old in question is some kind of adult scam artist, right? I mean, I don't know. That's just me. I usually give people the benefit of the doubt, but I would be a little confused and I would be a little taken aback by it. If not, I mean, let's be real, I'd be grossed out. According to the Barnetts, this was just the first of many signs that proved to them that Natalia was an adult posing as a child. Not long after the bathtub incident, as it was known to be called now, the parents said that they went to the beach for a beach day with Natalia and their other children. So they asked Natalia to wait a minute or two before going into the water because they were tired from carrying all their belongings onto the beach. Plus, they had all their kids with them. They had other kids besides Natalia, which we'll get to. And they had to carry her to the water. So they had to physically lift her. They were tired. They asked her to please wait a minute or two because remember, she could barely walk. Allegedly, Natalia decided she didn't want to wait and she just took off running into the water on her own after the other children. And the Barnetts claimed she was running too. That's a direct quote. The Barnetts said she went, quote, running, end quote, into the water. They also claimed that Natalia didn't ever seem to want to play with any kinds of toys, age appropriate or not. She didn't even play with children her age, but she seemed to prefer the company of teenagers and even adults instead. And they claimed that not only couldn't she speak her native language, but she didn't understand when people spoke it to her. They claimed she didn't respond to a single word. The couple said that aside from thinking Natalia was an adult and possibly not even Ukrainian, they said she was a troublemaker. They said she would place clear thumbtacks on the stairs, so as people were walking up or down the stairs, they would step on the thumbtacks and, quote, pain and injure themselves, end quote. They also alleged that the girl was extremely aggressive and would make threatening statements about wanting to harm them or the other members of the family, threatening to kill them all, as well as going as far as standing over them at night and watching them sleep and drawing violent pictures of murder fantasies against the family. Now, admittedly, she's been a lot less vocal than the Barnetts, but I want to give you Natalia's side of things as well. We need to know both sides of the story so that we can make an accurate or come up with an accurate opinion, I suppose. I know what my opinion is and I'll cover it at the end. And when I originally did this video, I got a lot of flack for my opinions about this case, but I'm going to state them again because this is my sounding board and I welcome all opinions. They're different from mine. Just tell me why you feel the way you do in the comments. I really am looking forward to seeing the discussion now that I have more than like 50 subscribers to watch the video. So remember, everything I've stated so far are just allegations made by the parents. It's not fact. And of course, Natalia vehemently denies all of these claims, all of the accusations. And she said that it was only after her first surgery, so she would need almost constant surgeries throughout her life to correct the problems with her bones and body that her rare form of dwarfism caused. And she said after her first surgery, this is when things took a really bad turn for the family and for her. When it came to an allegation that she had tried to poison Christine's coffee with lemon pledge, Natalia simply explained that they were cleaning the kitchen counters and she saw she had missed a spot. So she moved Christine's coffee out of the way so as not to accidentally get pledge into the coffee. And she said Christine immediately started accusing her of trying to kill her, with Christine even stating that when she asked Natalia about what she was doing with the pledge so close to her coffee, Natalia said, quote, I'm trying to kill you, end quote. Natalia says the only time she ever went into the couple's room at night was not to stand over them with knives or watch them sleep. She said she would have nightmares. It was a new place. She had been through so much and she just wanted to lay in bed and sleep with them. And she said she was never allowed the comfort of being able to sleep with her new parents, no matter what she was going through in the middle of the night. If she was scared, if she had a nightmare, she was banned from the bed. But the other children were allowed to sleep in the bed all of the time whenever they wanted. But Natalia was not allowed in the parents' room. And as a 6-year-old girl, she wasn't allowed to go to them in the middle of the night for comfort. She stated she just wanted to lay with her parents to feel safe and not be scared anymore, and they wouldn't provide her with that. The Barnett stated that Natalia would jump out of moving vehicles, quote, wipe bodily fluids, end quote, all over the mirrors in the house, and that she one time went so far as to try to push Christine into an electric fence so that she would be electrocuted. See, here's where I start to have a problem with the Barnett's allegations. With Natalia being only 2 feet tall, the logistics of her alone, taking into account not just her size, but her alleged young age at the time, right? Does it seem reasonable that she would be able to push an average-sized person, let alone to the point where she'd be able to move them, completely physically knock them over? With her disabilities, her stature, and her alleged age? No. In my opinion, it would be impossible. Do I think the Barnetts are perhaps exaggerating a little bit because of all the flack they caught for abandoning a little girl? Absolutely. But that's just my opinion. So about 2 years after they officially and legally adopted Natalia, the couple filed a motion in the County Superior Court to change Natalia's age from 9 years old to 22 years old. Yeah, you heard me correctly. And mind blown, taking into account all of the previous allegations that I told you guys about, these were mentioned to the judge in the Superior Court. And the judge actually ruled that Natalia's year of birth on her official birth certificate be changed from 2003 to 1989. So now, legally, on her legal birth certificate, Natalia is no longer a 9-year-old girl now. Now she goes to a grown legal adult of age 22. Which, I'll get into it later, how the heck is this abandoning a child if legally she is an adult? This case drives me nuts. That's why I wasn't going to reboot it, but it's like, it was here. I told you guys, short week, rough week, didn't get much work done. Drives me nuts. The couple did eventually decide to take Natalia to see a psychiatrist, and they claim that it was here where she admitted to not only trying to kill the family, but all of these devious plots and plans on how to kill them, when to kill them, where and how to dump the bodies. She also allegedly admitted to the psychiatrist that she was in fact lying about her age. Christine claims that a copy of this report, this information from the doctor, along with a diagnosis that Natalia is not just a psychopath, but also a sociopath, was given to the courts. Supposedly, this doctor backs up the fact that Natalia is much older than she'd been claiming all along, and that in her birth certificate and the doctor's professional opinion was clearly a fraud. This alleged report, because I've not seen it, and I don't think anybody's actually seen this except for the people involved in the court, it supposedly has other doctors' professional opinions, physicians such as medical doctors and dentists, as well as the psychiatrists and psychologists. They all say that Natalia back in 2011 was, quote, well over 18, end quote, and that they collectively came to this conclusion by analyzing her sexual development, examining her teeth, and also claimed she had a normal menstrual cycle, which again, I refer you to the Mayo Clinic recognizing precocious puberty as something. I don't want to say a disorder, but as a thing. So, in response to the petition filed by the Barnett parents, while taking into consideration all of this alleged information from all of these doctors and considering their collective opinion to be valid, a judge in the County Superior Court ruled to have the year of Natalia's birth changed from 2003 to 89, making her age 22, as I just said. Michael claimed the main reason the couple wanted the birth year change was like, yeah, he was afraid for his family, but he thought she was a fraud and he wasn't going to be fooled anymore. But he did say the main reason was for Natalia to benefit her, because if she were an adult legally, then they could put her and have her admitted into a psychiatric facility. Whereas if she were a child or a minor child, she couldn't be. So I don't really know how that works. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to admit your own child into a psychiatric facility if they needed it, but I don't know. Anyone from Indiana, do you guys like know that law? I don't know. It would be really weird if someone did, I guess, but do you know? Let me know in the comments below, please, because I feel like you'd have more control over admitting a minor child that you're the parent of or guardian of into a psychiatric facility than a grown legal adult. So to me, that sounds like all BS, but I honestly don't know the law, so I can't say for sure. I can't make a valid or accurate opinion on that because I don't know the law. Now, obviously, several entities, including news media, have reached out to these doctors to try and get a copy of this report that was allegedly given to the judge, or just to get a confirmation as to some of the things it allegedly says. So to get some kind of confirmation, like all of this stuff that they're claiming was in this documentation that this judge supposedly read, where is the backup to this? Like, where is the confirmation on it? And all of these news media, news sources started reaching out, but obviously doctors in their offices can't confirm or deny even the existence of such information because it would be a violation of patient-doctor privilege. Anyways, right around the same time as all this was going on, most likely because of all of the constant media coverage that was surrounding this case, the police department started an investigation into the adoption agency, and they called in ICE, they called in the FBI because they were suspicious as to whether or not some form of age fraud scam was going on with this particular adoption agency. Specifically in Natalia's case, that she was trying to pull some kind of scam, and this is what the Barnetts had been alleging all along. So now that there was news coverage, the police finally opened an investigation with ICE and the FBI. I mean, this is getting pretty serious now. This is going way beyond a thought or, an allegation. I mean, the Barnetts claim that Natalia and the adoption agency were pulling a scam on them, basically to get all of Natalia's room and board paid for. I mean, she would have everything handed to her, including all of these multiple surgeries throughout her life. It's actually a pretty good scam if you think about it. You pretend to be a kid, you have someone raise you, and you're getting everything taken care of for you. Set up in a nice, comfortable home, basically to give a grown woman free citizenship and a ready-made family, a new and fresh start at life, by providing fraudulent birth certificates and possibly other documents in order to pull off this scam. These are really serious accusations, guys. Really serious. Now let's move on to 2013, when the Barnett's 12-year-old son was getting his own major media coverage for being an absolute genius. This kid at 12 years old even gave a TED Talk and was accepted into some kind of school for geniuses in Waterloo, Ontario. And yeah, guys, I'm sure the school has a name, but it's just easier at this point to say genius school. So anyways, this family decided to pack up and obviously move to Ontario because they couldn't send a 12-year-old boy to go and live by himself, even if he was academically a genius. That would be abandonment. However, the problem here is, while the whole family moved to be with the 12-year-old son so that they didn't abandon him at the school, they left Natalia behind and abandoned her. They left her in the United States and went to Canada. They left her in a different country. So now I want to get into the controversy surrounding this, because this is why they're facing charges. So while the Barnetts left Natalia in the United States and went off to Canada to be with their 12-year-old while he went to this genius school, they say that they set her up with an apartment that they agreed to pay the rent for, so she didn't have to pay rent. They also got her social security number so she could collect food stamps, TANF, cash assistance, all that kind of stuff. She was collecting several kinds of disability. They got her the maximum that she could get as far as assistance from the government, both locally and from the state. They even had to pay for a second apartment because Natalia was evicted from the first one. It said that she got into trouble, but I'm not sure what kind of trouble she got in. I just know that Natalia was evicted, and the Barnetts picked up the tab for that and put her in a new place. Christine says that while all of this was going on, she spoke to Natalia daily to see how she was doing, to talk to her, to make sure she was okay. And she was also helping her get enrolled in school, into college, so that she can study cosmetology. However, they were only going to be paying her rent for a certain amount of time. The same thing they supposedly had done with their other older kids who had left home, kind of helped them get on their feet, get a little sense of responsibility, but have them know that that 1-year deadline is coming up, so they're going to have to be self-sufficient by that time. So they were treating her just like they treated their other adult kids who had just left the nest. Same deal, all the kids. So this isn't anything specific, according to them, to Natalia. I can't stress that enough. So it's not like they're only paying for her for a year, but they're willing to support their other kids for the rest of their lives. This was like the deal that they had in their home with all of their kids, including Natalia. So once it came to the point where Natalia only had 1 year left, this seems to be where all of the trouble started. Like, once it got down to, okay, we're only paying for another year, this is when the crap hit the fan. Natalia claims that the Barnetts stopped talking to her altogether. Like, they gave her this apartment, they got her, her benefits, and then they were like, peace. Christine says it was Natalia that broke off all communication, and she said that try as she might, she could not get in touch with the girl at all. Christine says this is when she received some kind of letter or notification in the mail advising her that Natalia had changed the beneficiary on her life insurance policy from Michael to some other random person that she didn't even know. And she said she became very, very concerned that this meant Natalia was, quote, off scamming, end quote, some other person or family as they believe she had done to them. So let's break this down. She gets this letter stating that Natalia changed the beneficiary to some person. And she's like, who is this person? Like, what's going on? And she claims that Natalia broke off all contact and then did this so she couldn't even get a hold of her to find out what was going on. Christine said that while she was concerned, though, her hands were tied as Natalia was a legal adult. And if she didn't want to speak to them, she didn't have to. Her birth certificate said so, remember? Eventually, though, in 2014, this is when Natalia went to the police and told them that the family had just abandoned her. She did not tell them that she was legally an adult. She claimed to be a little girl, I think the age 11, and she said that her parents had abandoned her and went to Canada and left her living alone. Now, somehow, and this gets very confusing, the police were able to bring abandonment and neglect of a minor charges against the Barnetts. But I don't understand how this is possible. And guys, please don't attack me in the comments. I'm not talking right now about morally possible. I'm talking about how is this legally possible for them to put charges against the Barnetts for abandoning a minor child when, in fact, legally, a judge had already ruled that she was a legal adult at the age of 22. Even older at this point in 2014. So, again, they're putting neglect of a minor, abandonment of a minor child against the Barnetts for a child who is legally an adult. The court said so. The judge said so. He signed off on it. She was born in 89. It was 2014. Anyways, it's unclear to me. I couldn't find much information as to what happened from the time Natalia went to the police and they put these neglect charges against the Barnetts to 2019, 5 years later, when the Barnetts turned themselves in on child neglect charges. But here's what I do know. First of all, Natalia lived for quite a long time on the Barnetts' dime while collecting all of these benefits in those 5 years or so that she was left by herself. Like, in 2014, she went to the police on them and the charges were filed. In 2019, they turned themselves in. She lived by herself and did pretty good for quite a while. She was also repeatedly evicted from apartments, again, with the reasons for these evictions being unclear. I've seen reports where it said she was throwing parties, like drinking parties. There were drugs involved. I've seen reports where it was simply that she wasn't paying her rent. I don't know. I can't report any of it as fact. It's just as elusive as this whole case is to begin with. In one case, she was evicted and her neighbors paid the back rent and got her somehow back into the apartment, into the good graces of that landlord. Remember, her adoptive parents had cut her off financially by this time. In 2016, Natalia started attending a school called the Excel Center. The Excel Center is basically a tuition-free high school for adults, and sometime a little bit after this, she was actually taken in by another family. I'm unclear how she met this family, why they took her in after she had been living on her own for so long. I mean, this is going on 7 years now that she had been living, possibly even longer actually, that she had been living on her own. I can't say she was doing perfectly fine because she kept getting evicted for whatever reason, but She and these new people that took her in did an interview with Dr. Phil, and Natalia was part of the interview. I apologize in advance. Obviously, I cannot put clips of this interview in because Dr. Phil McGraw doesn't play around and he will copyright strike me. Not that I'm monetized anyway, but maybe one day I'll be able to monetize this video. And I'd rather just explain to y'all what went down in this interview. You can find clips of it on YouTube if you want to go watch, if you're interested. It is pretty interesting. So this couple's names were Antoine and Cynthia Mann, and Antoine was a pastor, and Cynthia was a homemaker and stay-at-home mom to their other 5 children. So they brought Natalia in to make 6. On the Dr. Phil show, Cynthia Mann explained that Natalia, whom she believed at the time was 16 years old, had yet to ever have her first period, and also that Natalia had never shown any form of violence at all towards anyone, let alone their family. I just want to point out here that they thought she was 16 in 2016, which would make her stating that her birth year was 2000. I do believe she's a scam artist, but we'll get to that in the end. And again, if you don't agree with me, that's fine. Come at me in the comments. Respectfully, please. This is just a discussion. I mean, us talking about it isn't going to affect what's actually going on one way or another, so there's no need to be rude. Dr. Phil somehow even managed to contact Natalia's birth mother, who claimed that Natalia was in fact just 6 years old when the Barnetts adopted her, and that at the time of the taping of the show, which the Barnetts were legally unable to be a part of due to a gag order placed on them regarding the case due to their pending charges and the upcoming trial, the neglect case, she really was only 16 years old. But again, that doesn't make sense because her birth certificate said 2003, the one that came from the adoption agency. It did not say the year 2000. Cynthia Mann explained that a friend had introduced Natalia to her and her family, and she did not believe for a second that Natalia was 22 years old, as Natalia was claiming to be at the time, living on her own. Mrs. Mann also states that when she asked Natalia if that was her real age, although Natalia had said yes, Cynthia states that she felt like Natalia had, quote, been groomed, end quote, allegedly by the Barnetts before they left for Canada, so that's the allegation here, to say no matter what that she was 22, that she was a grown adult. That way they didn't get in trouble is, what they're saying here. Cynthia said that she knew right away that Natalia was much younger than this, in her opinion. In 2016, the Manns petitioned the court to become Natalia's legal guardians. However, they couldn't do this because legally she isn't a minor, but she's a grown woman, which again makes me wonder how were neglect and all of these charges filed for a minor child against the Barnetts. Legally, whether she's an adult or a child, legally, under the law, she's an adult. How do you get abandonment charges or neglect charges or whatever against leaving an adult and paying for them for years? Take it down a notch, Gemma. Obviously, adoption records are kept completely confidential in most cases, this one being no exception. Also, these are foreign birth records. So the documentation was essentially impossible for the Manns to get a hold of, and therefore they dropped the petition for legal guardianship. Natalia's age is still up for debate to this day, with the fence being split basically right down the middle. 50-50. 50% think she's a grown-up scam artist, and the other 50 think that she's a child that had to go through all of this terrible hardship. Many people really do think that she was just an innocent little girl who had been through so much and was callously and cruelly thrown away and abandoned by her adopted family for one reason or another, as Natalia claims, so that they didn't have to pay for all these constant surgeries, which doesn't make sense to me because you can get like disability insurance for, especially for a child, to get these things paid for, I believe, unless I'm being naive, but I'm pretty sure you get most of that stuff paid for, especially with an adopted child from another country in the United States. We're very giving when it comes to other countries. Many people believe that this was the case, though, that they just didn't want to pay for these surgeries and all the money was going to be taken away from cultivating the potential of their genius biological son. So they wouldn't have been able to afford everything that he needed to make him the best person he could be, because they needed to pay for, I guess, the school. It was taking way too much money, way too much time, taking her to all these doctor's visits, to all these adoption appointments, all of these things that they had to do for Natalia. They just really weren't interested in doing, because they wanted to cultivate the potential in their genius. That's alleged, though. I'm not saying that's true. And actually, my opinion, I don't believe that. As I said before, I believe she's some kind of scam artist. Just as many others do, though, at least as far as I can tell, they believe that Natalia is much older than even her new birth records claim she is, and is a highly skilled and or highly intelligent scam artist who has simply replaced her mark from it being the Barnetts to it being the Manns, and she's just very good at what she does. I'm on that side of the fence. Another question that this brought up for me is, again, aside from the obvious, how are they being charged with neglect when she's legally adult? How is Dr. Phil getting a hold of the birth mother so easily just to interview her for the show? Why couldn't the birth mother reach out and get the adoptive records for the Manns so they could legally adopt Natalia, and or so that they could prove or disprove the claim that she was the age she says she was? The birth mother is entitled to those records. Maybe not, but I mean, if Dr. Phil can get a hold of her, can he at least ask her for these records? Have her take a polygraph test, something. I need proof, I need facts, I need evidence, I need stone cold proof. As far as I can tell, with doing all the research and writing the script for this video, the Barnett's defense is that they really and truly thought that Natalia was in fact a grown and legal adult when they left her and moved to Canada, and the law was supposed to be on their side because of what the judge ordered for her birth certificate to be changed. And I don't mean to harp on that, but think about it. This is wrong on so many levels that they're being charged, whether she's a child or not. I'm sorry. I'm not talking morally, guys. I'm talking legally here. It's wrong what's being done to these people. And that's not to say what happened to Natalia may or may not be wrong. I'm not talking moral. Investigators and prosecutors, however, believe that the Barnetts knowingly abandoned a severely disabled Natalia for one reason or another, because they didn't want to deal with her anymore, they didn't want to pay for her anymore, they were creeped out by her, they thought she was trying to kill them, whatever the reason. The prosecution really believes that they knowingly did this, they knowingly abandoned a sick child. So, the most recent information I can find is that Michael and Christine Barnett are divorced, and the neglect charges, 6 to 8 different charges, neglecting a minor child, neglecting a person with a medical need, all of the charges against both Michael and Christine have been dismissed and dropped. However, the state is still filing appeals to this day. This was the most recent information that I can get. Guys, if you like this video and enjoy hanging out with me discussing these types of things, give this video a big thumbs up. It'll really help me out. My views are super high for me, and my likes are kind of low, but they've been evening out a little bit better and climbing higher and higher. Thank you so much for doing that for me, for the love and support, the constant support you guys give me on a regular basis, your beautiful comments. I have the most beautiful subscribers in like the world. Also, if you would check out the description box for some links, guys, I'm still not monetized. I am slowly climbing to 1,000 subscribers. I've far surpassed my view hours, and you will find a link for my PayPal. You can donate directly to there, as much or as little as you want. Every little bit helps, and it does go directly back into the channel. I'm saving up for a background, a green screen, got the roller thing. It goes back into equipment for the channel and helps me out because I do this full time. Also, you can join my Patreon. I try to do like early access for patrons right now because I only have 5. So to do like a whole series, although I do have a really awesome series in mind once I get enough patrons. Thank you so much to my beautiful and lovely patrons now. I love, appreciate, respect, admire. You guys are the best. I appreciate you, and it warms my heart that you guys are willing to support me in that way. So you'll find the link in the description box for both my Patreon and my PayPal account. If you're unable to support the channel and me financially, that's totally fine because there are so many other ways you can support the channel. You can like this video, as I said, subscribe if you haven't already. I need to get to 1,000 subscribers in order to be monetized. Steve Stockton and I are writing a book. In the description box, you will also find the links to 1 or 2 of our Sunday night live streams, Fireside Chat with Steve and Gemma, where we just go in and we just have like a conversation about kind of nothing. And then as we talk to the chat, the conversation kind of evolves. You never know where it's going to go. It's super duper fun. So check out those links. Go on over there every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and I'm pretty sure 12 midnight in the UK. My UK fam, please let me know if that's true or not, because in every video I'm like, I think UK. So this was a short week for me. I only put out the budget home and beauty because, as I said in that video, if you didn't see it, I did have some kind of family emergency this week. I wasn't home half the week, blah, blah, blah. I know you guys don't want to hear it, but that's why I'm kind of filming in the same shirt. I'm just like a mess, but I wanted to put out what I could and at least get something out to you guys so you get your Gemma fix, you know? I love you guys so much. Have your best day. Have your best night. Be kind to each other. It doesn't cost anything and it can gain you so much. Kindness is for you, not so much the other person. And when you let your kindness show, I promise you, it's really beautiful. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for being patient with me on this short week. Bye-bye.